Broadcasting from Oklahoma, the tornado capital of the world, home of the Oklahoma City Thunder and the University of Oklahoma Sooners. This is the Curated Experience Show, a weekly podcast about the customer experience with viewpoints you will not hear anywhere else. And now your host, author, and customer experience expert, Amos Tanuma.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am your host, Amos Tanuma, and I've got a guest on for you guys today. I've got Joseph Maxwell. Joe, you with me?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for doing the show. I want you to do a quick intro. We're going to post your information, so those of you listening, you'll be able to connect with him at the end of the show. But really quickly, talk a little bit about your background and why you do what you do, why you're in this space of solving the problems we're going to talk about here in a second.
Sure. So I'm Joseph Maxwell. I'm the CEO at Parlance Corporation. And the business has been around for 20 plus years and essentially trying to solve the problem of helping callers get easier access to the resources within a business. And I have been doing this for a long time and just started with, one objective, which was to say, how can you make it a lot easier for people using this, at the time, new thing called speech recognition?
Right.
How do you make it easy for people to, when they have this need and they're engaging a business, to be able to just easily connect to the resource that they need at that business? And I didn't know it would take as many years as it would to really have it work well and have it work well for the business and the consumer, because you have to make it work well for the business in order to have the consumer or caller that's engaging with them have a great experience too.
Awesome. If you're just listening, I am speaking with Joseph Maxwell, who's the CEO of Parlance. Let's get into the problems you're actually trying to solve. So everyone who listens knows that I have a almost hatred for automated systems. Whether they're speech recognition, whether they're buttons, I can't call most 1-800 number in front of young children because they can't understand me. It's a whole thing, right? Like, it is just a bad experience. So let's talk about the auto attendant, IVR, whatever you want to call it. So by way of background, this challenge of, frankly, getting the right person to the right person at the right company is what you guys are trying to solve. So let's talk about some of the things that are broken. Why people like me and customers everywhere, why do they hate this piece of technology in general? Not yours, but in general.
Yeah. Well, I think people have a variety of experiences, and this is kind of well-worn territory. I think the two biggest challenges are that, when someone now has a need and they're calling a company and they hit automation, they think, oh, this is going to be work. That's the first thing that they think. And then the second thing that they think is, and it may not pay off. I may work at it and I still may not get what I need.
Right.
So I think the fact that they're going to have to invest some effort and they're not sure if it's going to really pay off for them, I think those are the two biggest problems that people face and why they sort of have such a distaste for IVRs.
Yeah, so to that end, I remember I've been in this marketplace now over 20-something years, and I remember many years ago we were told that speech, right, bringing in speech to the deal and voice recognition was going to solve all these problems.
Right.
So we tried it, and then every IVR had speech, and it couldn't understand me. I still couldn't get to where I was going. So talk a little bit about why the industry made a bad bet in just thinking, well, in my estimation, a bad bet in just thinking, you know what, we'll throw speech recognition at this problem and everything will go away. And that ultimately wasn't enough, or it didn't work. Why did that not get the job done?
Right. Well, again, I'll kind of point out, I think, two things that made it challenging for early speech recognition to work. I mean, again, the early technology that was used is not as good as some of the technology that is in place today.
Right.
So the technology has improved over 20 years. Um, but I'll say that, setting that aside, one is that one of the issues that you'll find is sometimes people were just asking the speech recognition to do too much.
Mm, yeah.
And then two is, not everybody is good at designing IVRs, and when you get into the speech realm,
Right.
I think the bar can be a little higher in trying to make sure that you have a good and well designed speech application. And maybe the last thing that compounds that is, there's this tendency to kind of the IT space, or sometimes even in the telephony space, to kind of set it and forget it.
Right.
And speech recognition is not one of those things that you kind of have that you get to set and forget. There's a amount of sort of tuning and optimizing that has to happen, and then you kind of need to stay abreast of changes in the business and how that might change how people are engaging with you to make sure that you're adopting that or adapting that solution to track those changes.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. And again, we're chatting with Joseph Maxwell with Parlance, who's the CEO of Parlance. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things I read and saw based on what you guys are doing, and
Hmm.
it's this age-old problem of most companies and all the folks who listen to us. No one is a pure, call it contact center, 1-800. There are
Hmm.
always these sort of support folks, right? So you've got your traditional contact centers who are in queues and what have you. Then there is, I just need to, so let's take patient experience, which is an industry you guys do a lot of work in, and we have lots of listeners
Okay.
as well. So
Yeah.
I think about the vulnerable population, which is a population that's near and dear to my heart. So think elderly patients, right,
Hmm.
who don't want to press 4, 10, da 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 da. Frankly, the whole thing of
Hmm.
an IVR is intimidating to them. And
Hmm.
most times they're calling to make an appointment. It's not really a call center. It's this. So talk about this matrix that most companies are trying to solve, which is I have this phone number. Sometimes it's contact center. Sometimes it's a corporate office. And then I also have
Right.
these uh, consumers or patients who don't want to be put through. They just want to call and talk to someone. How is your
Right.
solution? How have
Right.
you guys looked to solve that conundrum that lots of
Right.
business face? Mhm.
Right. So there are a couple of things, a couple of problems that you raise, and I'll try to um, take each one of them. One problem that you mentioned is, and it's very prominent in particularly the hospital or health network space, is
Right.
the fact that people call into a number that's maybe designed, or where the people who are answering that number are designed to deal with issues that the caller is not looking for,
Mm,
and that can happen because when you go and Google a hospital or a health network, there
right.
can be lots of different numbers that
Yeah.
that come up for someone to call. And so, what we typically see is about 30 to 35% of calls that land at a particular number are really need to be handled someplace else. So with you can use, this sort of speech-based routing solution to help, with an initial question or two, get people away from that number that's not going to really help them, or away from the resources there and over to the right spot. And that can be the sort of first thing that helps people get to where they want to get to. The second piece you mentioned is that, hey, there's some people who, for whatever the reason, they don't want to engage with with automation, or they have some challenges that don't allow them to engage well with automation.
Right.
And where I think this is helpful is if you have automation up front to allow those callers who can navigate well, essentially some easier speech-driven automation, then those routine calls get to where they need to get to. They are allowed to self-serve. And now the agents that are phenomenal at doing the work of engaging with people and providing the empathy that needs to be provided, or working through the tough challenge, they're now more available to give that patient care to the callers that are calling in, so they can more patiently service those callers.
That's amazing. So when I started looking into this, so I've been in this space for a while, and I just found you guys. I met one of your colleagues a couple of months ago, um, and I was I was surprised I hadn't heard of the solution. So we're now in this realm of getting the right person on with the right resource they need at the right time,
Hmm.
and doing that, using speech and routing in very,
Hmm.
very smart ways. I want you to talk a little bit about the solution itself,
Okay.
and why this is a different take that would be proven to be more effective. And I especially want to hear like the best story you had when you sort of said, okay, yes, we're we're onto something here. This is really making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so and with our solution, we focus on sort of step one of the caller's journey when they're calling into an organization. So oftentimes there's a lot of automation that can be used to deal with particular tasks,
Right.
and trying to support the agent with that. But people sometimes forget about how important that first step is, and making that first impression to the caller. And oftentimes we see a lot of frustration that agents may encounter downstream are because callers have had such a poor initial first engagement with them, whether they're having to wait on hold for a long period of time, or they've had to navigate, a complex DTMF IVR. If you can make that first step good, then you have given better care to that caller, and
Yeah.
you've set up the agent to be more successful later. So our solution really focuses on that first step, and asking the set of questions that need to be asked to sort of sort out whether it's a skills-based routing in a contact center setting, or even around the operator services, and trying to get callers routed to any one of the employees or staff or physicians or patients within a hospital setting. We do very well to one of our sort of unique elements is how well we do in taking on multiple sort of directory data sources to synthesize this authoritative directory that sort of maps all the resources within an enterprise, so that no matter what the caller is looking for, we're able to help them be successful in routing to that resource. And so, in the case of hospitals, it can be even fast changing information, like patients. Patients moving from room to room. We can still stay up to date with that. And if people are after a patient, we can get them sorted to that patient. We'd even do things like, if someone's calling in after hours and you have a curfew for patients, then we can route to the nurses station for that patient at that time. So they're just a variety of little features like that help to, all in all, make it as easy as possible for people to self-serve and get to that right destination, and try to offload some of that routine work from the agents.
Yeah, you made me remember a quote from one of my clients. She's I think she's the chief clinical officer for a provider, a major provider, and she says, "I want everyone operating at the top of their license," and
That's right.
which you sort of know where she's going, and she was saying
Right.
that to me in the context of, come help us utilize technology and processes so that I don't have, like in their case, they're doing field-based care. So
Right.
I don't have my nurses driving everywhere. I use the
That's
term
right.
that sometimes I did a ride along with your nurses, and they felt like Uber drivers and not nurses, because they're
Right.
navigating in certain new technology. So this is sort of the same thing. So I want to talk a little bit about the employee experience, and sort of saying,
Sure.
how does, I begin to sort of, I hear you speak, and I begin to sort of think about the possibilities from the internal employee perspective, you've got
Right.
a lady or guy whose day job is this, but because of the phone system, they're transferring people,
Right.
they're getting it wrong.
Right.
But like your job, like my job, I want to do the things I'm uniquely good at. So let's
Right.
talk a little bit about how using this kinds of technology really frees up your resources, so that
Right.
you can really
Right.
spend time doing some of those other things.
Right. So, let's say that you are in a setting where, everything's live answer now,
Yeah.
and there's no automation because some people have. There's still a lot of businesses out there that say, hey, we really don't want to put that poor IVR in front of people. We want to treat people well, and so it's all live answer.
Right.
Usually, when we come into a setting like that, um, for the employees or agents or operators that are there, we can typically allow as much as, let's say, around operator services, anywhere from 35 to 50% of the calls that would normally come to that point can be offloaded from them because those callers can now self-serve to reach the destination that they need to reach. So when you think about that in terms of now workload removed from that pool of operators, then now they're much more available to do other things. And those operators usually have other things that they're doing. They're not just answering calls. Sometimes they're concierges and people are walking up to them. Sometimes they're watching particular meters or alarms and having to respond to things or having to manage codes. So that can be a big deal to ensure that there's this assistance in managing the calls that's with them, and they don't have to answer and manage every single call. Then over in the agent side, when you talk about people now are calling in to say a centralized scheduling line, you've put this on your website and you want people to call it, but you find that now people are calling it for everything. So now, 25 to 30% of the calls that these scheduling agents are receiving are for something that they can't help them with. So they ended up doing a lot of transfers. Well, if you can have a solution up front that is getting those calls away from them, and just allowing those that are really after an appointment or managing an appointment get to those agents, then now you have reduced their workload as well so that they're able to, again, take their time more and be patient with those who are calling in and needing to adjust an appointment or schedule a new appointment.
Wow. Yeah, and we're gonna have to wrap here, but I want you to react to one more thing. For those of you who have listened to this show for years, I've always said that no one hates automation in a vacuum. I mean, we all drive
Right.
to the bank, right? And
Right.
there's a teller there. And because all I need is $20, I will drive by the teller, go to an ATM, and withdraw the money because that experience is frankly superior to dealing with the teller. I've got to sign a deal, da da da. So what we all
Right.
hate is bad automation that's not
That's right.
smart. We hate IVRs
That's right.
not because they're inherently bad. To what Joseph said earlier, they're just not built well. Like there's not good intelligence. They're not well thought out. So I think I would leave the last words to you and talk a little bit about, because there's a population of people who've made this thing what I think is a false choice. You either have an IVR or you have no IVR. Or you have a bad
That's right.
IVR or no IVR. And I think
That's right.
what you're saying is like, no. There's a way to build a smarter system
Right.
that's more inclusive to people who like this and people who like that. So talk a little bit about those who are listening who've bought into this nonsense that there's either bad IVRs or you just eliminate it altogether and give people access to humans.
Right. Yeah. So I think I'll say two things. One on, yes, people tend to think it's all or nothing. It's, as you say, it's either we go with IVR or we go with live answer, and that's our only choice. And for us, we look at it as, well, it's both. There's a role for automation, and that is in dealing with the routine and those that are comfortable with it. And And then there's a role for the agent, and those two can work together well so that the agent is optimized. And as your friend or colleague says, they're able to operate more at the top of their skill level because they don't have to be bombarded with things that are more routine and easy to address. So living in that middle where there's this automated live agent partnership, that's where you want to be. And then for bad IVR versus good IVR, it really has to, one of the things we like to say is, we really care about the caller. And sometimes we end up wrestling a little bit with the customer to say, hey, we are noticing some things here with the callers, and maybe we should do this way instead. And so it's that care for the caller that drives us to stay engaged with our solution. So when we deploy something, we don't think that we've nailed it with iteration one. We actually stay with it. We do a little bit of listening along with that to understand where are people having trouble, and then we engage and work with that customer to then reshape that application if we need to, such that it's performing better for the callers. Wow. So those are the two pieces.
Awesome. Well, Joseph, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. For those of you listening,
sure.
We're going to post their information. If you guys want to get more information on Joseph and the team at Parlance, we will have that for you. And thank you again so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.
And until next time, remember, the experience is either random or intentionally curated. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Curated Experience with Amos Tanuma. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll join the conversation online by visiting us at curatedcx.com or at amostanuma.com. That's curatedcx.com or AMASTENUMAH.com. And please invite your friends and colleagues to visit our website or iTunes, where they can check this and previous podcasts. This has been a Bien LLC production. Check us next time for another edition of The Curated Experience.